Hello everyone, welcome back to my video podcast on the future of business and technology, which we are streaming to LinkedIn, to X and YouTube. And you can also watch this on or listen to this on all podcast platforms. Today's topic is how you develop a competitive advantage through agnostic AI. And I'm super pleased to say I'm joined today by Kasia Borowska, who is the managing director of Brainpool AI. Welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so maybe we can start by you giving us an overview of what you do and what Brainpool AI is.
Sure. My background is in mathematics and cognitive science, which is building mathematical models to predict human behavior, which is kind of like the beginnings of AI. And for the past 6 years, we've been running Brainpool AI alongside our CTO, Dr. Peter Babington, which is a company providing custom AI solutions to corporations. So we start by understanding what the business objective is and what the company wants to achieve with AI, and then we build a custom AI solution to directly address those objectives.
Very good. So maybe you can give us an overview of how you see the AI market at the moment and try to cut through some of the hype, because there's so much hype around AI. How would you define the market? What do you see at the moment?
It's a good question. You're absolutely right. There's so much hype. Pretty much everyone talks about AI, even if they don't use AI, they still say that they do. So we see a lot of this FOMO effect. The companies are scared of missing out on this hype, but they don't necessarily fully understand what to do with AI. Everyone's tried ChatGPT. Most of us have seen the very impressive capabilities that the chat has, but how to actually leverage it for the company's benefit. So we typically try to simplify it for our clients. And what we say is think about it as automation. So what are those most manual, repetitive, time-consuming tasks that your teams are undertaking on a day-to-day basis? Most of those tasks will be taken on by AI. It's just a matter of time. So if you continue to do things manually, you're most likely going to stay behind. And that's the reason really to explore this area of AI.
Yeah, super interesting. And this is exactly what I'm seeing. I think companies need to understand that AI, in particular generative AI, is going to transform the world. And I firmly believe that it will transform every industry and every company. And I think a really good way for companies to look at this is to think, can they see themselves as an AI company or an AI-enabled company? And I think this is how far organizations need to go and how far this transformation will become, because AI has so much potential to transform how organizations operate, but it will also transform the products and services they will produce, and it will transform everyone's job and how they work. So it has really wide-reaching impact.
Absolutely.
So do you think AI is relevant for a company of any size?
Well, definitely larger companies already started exploring AI. Many of them have in-house AI teams. We think that a really interesting area is the medium-sized companies. So companies that have just started learning about the possibilities with AI, but they don't necessarily have the resources to hire their own in-house AI team. And that's where it makes sense to work with external consultants like Brainpool to help them understand what are the opportunities and potentially build those bespoke AI solutions that directly address their specific business objectives.
Yeah, this is what I'm seeing as well. I work with lots of large companies, and for me, there's two categories. You get the ones that really understand AI. They're in it completely, and they are now developing amazing solutions to help them. And then there are others that experiment a tiny little bit, but they don't do a lot. And then I find that there are lots of really small companies, startups, that are also all in